There was a time in my life where I was doing 300 sit-ups a day. Good to know I can still do one. And I did those 300 sit-ups a day for many months in a row. And I noticed 5 important ways that it impacted my body. And if you can guess the last one by typing it in the comments, I will be genuinely impressed because it was unexpected, but it's also the one I remember the most. There was a time in the not so distant past where a man was judged not by the color of his skin, but by the content of his nay, not even that. But he was judged by how many push-ups he could do, how fast he could run, and how many sit-ups he could do. And that time was about 3rd grade. Things are a lot different as an adult, guys. Like, I know I do sit-ups in a weird way, but I can still probably do a bunch of sit-ups and nobody cares. My wife doesn't care, my friends don't care, my butt really cares, and that's point number 5. I'll talk about that in a second. So I had this goal in mind when I first started doing sit-ups while watching TV. The TV would be there, I would just do it while the TV show plays. It was actually pretty fun. And the first effect I noticed is that I did not really have any back pain associated with my sit-ups. There is the idea nowadays that doing sit-ups is bad for your back. That's why some people prefer different exercises. I myself do prefer leg raises, which are just done like this, by the way, so you can do them in the same spot. I personally didn't have issues, and if you want to avoid sit-ups, that's perfectly fine. There are other possibly better ways you can train for the same thing. And the second effect that I noticed is that I improved my ability to do sit-ups relatively quickly. I think I started with like 100, but I found that after my brain kind of got used to the skill of doing sit-ups, and by the way, this is how I just did them back then, you can do maybe more than you think. So if you think like, wow, 20 would seem like a lot now, 50 would seem like a lot now. If you practice them regularly, I think the movement itself, because you get to rest at the bottom a little bit when you're tired, isn't that hard to do many reps after you're used to it. And the third point is not as good if you are a sit-up fan. By the way, I'm just doing different styles, different hands, just trying to change it up. Let me know if you want the angle changes. I'm basically just doing sit-ups the entire time, so I don't know how exciting that is. But I did not notice any discernible difference to my abs, and this isn't that surprising because I'm not necessarily growing the abs in the sense that I'm strengthening them, because I really wasn't approaching failure or using increased resistance. And increased resistance, like holding a plate, now that could make the lower back a little bit angry, and some people are a little bit heavier, so it's like me holding weight plates. So that's one of the reasons why some people may have back pain from sit-ups, whereas others may not as much. But yeah, for me, I wasn't doing enough for me to lose weight just from that, and the muscle really wasn't growing because it wasn't challenging enough for me. So of course, my abs won't look very different. As we know, as many of us already know, spot reduction through exercise is not known to be possible. There are some arguments you can make, but by and large, if you want better abs, just doing sit-ups, probably not going to be enough. Definition anywhere is usually a mixture of musculature, so growing the muscle, and lower body fat. So if you grow muscle there to have a healthy, muscular, strong abs, and then if you want to, you can adjust your eating patterns to reduce the amount of body fat percentage you have, and that can help you build good abs. By the way, stuff like that, the L-sit, V-sit, sit-ups, leg raises, other core exercises, it's not just the abs, they often also incorporate the hip flexors, which are usually training them in a contracted position like this from here, doing something like this motion. But if you want to train them also in a lengthened position, it can help if you're doing something like a lunge. Hey, if you want to learn leg raises and more, we have a free fitness routine on our website. You can do it from home. It's adaptable to almost any fitness level, including beginners, so you can get started today. It's free to view and you don't have to sign up. But there's a book version if you want to buy one, and an app version, which we have recently made a lot faster, but we're still improving. I'll talk about that more soon. And another effect that I would have then that I don't really have now, because I don't think I'm doing enough sit-ups, I'm just doing these sit-ups while I make this video, is I would sweat quite a bit. I think after 100, 150, I would start off not necessarily sweating that much, but after 100, 150 consistent ones, I think that's the reason I'm not sweating now, is because I'm taking breaks when I move the camera and stuff. I would sweat quite a lot. Again, you're not sweating off the fat. I know a lot of people already know this, but that is a misconception sometimes. We actually, I believe, exhale the fat loss. And when we lose fat and we feel the burning, that's not necessarily burning the fat. I believe we actually exhale the weight we lose. Well, that's what I read anyway. Pretty interesting stuff. So I would make sure to wash my shirt and clothing after I would do this. But I actually have that gene, I think, where my sweat doesn't really smell. My assistant and friend didn't believe me, but I have references. People did sniff me and they said I don't smell like anything. Well, I do have a scent, but apparently it's just not as pungent. I don't know. And for the fifth and final effect I'll talk about here, I have elected to use a prop. It is a penny. And this penny is about the size and shape of the scab that formed on my tailbone, because I wouldn't think doing sit-ups I'd want to go side to side, right? Intuitively, because of balance, I'd want to go up straight, not necessarily going from left to Lionel the butt cheek and going from the right on Sophia the butt cheek. Don't ask, they're different names, but that ended up being what I had to do, because if I would go up straight, and I didn't start with an exercise mat like this. I started with, I think, I was on the floor, and then a relatively thin mat, and I would need 10 millimeters or quite a thick exercise mat in order for it to not affect my tailbone, and it would still affect it a little bit. And when you do many, it would start to chafe. Now, I heard many years later from someone in the comment section like, no, don't listen to this. There is an aspect of physical therapy that specializes in tailbone mobility. And I guess I could look it up. I haven't looked it up for this video. Feel free to talk about it, but I don't feel like the spot of my tailbone on Tony the tailbone, Tony with an I, it's a girl, don't ask, is not mobile enough. I could look it up, but I'm just curious what people will say. So I would go up on Lionel, I would go down, and then I would go up on Sophia. Anyway, eventually, like many of the other exercises I would do, like I would run a 5K every day, I would do almost 500 push-ups a day, 300 sit-ups a day. Those are fun to try, and I'm glad I had the experience, but I phased those out so I could follow a more intelligent fitness routine where the exercises got harder as I got stronger. So if you're watching this and you take nothing away, but you do like home workout, you do like calisthenics, try to find a way where you can find a harder progression of the exercise that you're doing, because just doing more and more reps sometimes has diminishing returns. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful, beautiful day, my friend. Hey, by the way, I've written a story and have been doing a webtoon for the past year. We've entered a contest, and it really helps if you sign up, like, and comment, like as part of the judging process. We'll talk more about that soon.